Scary telling. I was a YouTuber who specialized in creating videos on paranormal activities. I used to visit various haunted locations to record my experiences and share them with my subscribers. My videos were quite popular and had a huge following. However, my last video turned out to be the scariest experience of my life. I received a mysterious message on my YouTube channel from a viewer. The message read, "I know of a haunted mansion that no one has ever visited. Do you have the courage to explore it?" As a paranormal investigator, I couldn't resist the opportunity to visit this mansion. I replied to the message and arranged a meeting with the viewer. The viewer gave me the address of the mansion and warned me that the place was cursed. He told me that no one who had entered the mansion had ever returned. Despite the warning, I decided to visit the mansion as I was sure that I could handle any paranormal activity. I drove to the mansion and parked my car outside. The mansion was old and decrepit, with broken windows and doors. I took my camera and started recording as I walked inside. The interior was even worse than the exterior. The walls were peeling, the floors were creaking, and there was an eerie silence. As I walked through the mansion, I heard strange noises. I could hear footsteps behind me, but when I turned around, there was no one there. I felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't see anyone. Suddenly, I heard a woman's voice, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. It was a whisper, and it sounded like it was coming from inside my head. I kept walking and eventually found myself in a dark room. The room was empty except for a mirror. I walked up to the mirror and saw my reflection. But it was not my reflection. It was someone else's. The person in the mirror had a twisted face and bloodshot eyes. I was horrified. Suddenly, the lights went out, and I was plunged into darkness. I could hear footsteps getting closer, and I knew that I was not alone. I started running blindly through the darkness, hoping to find a way out. But the mansion was like a maze, and I couldn't find my way out. I finally stopped running and tried to catch my breath. That's when I saw her. A woman, with long hair and a white dress, was standing in front of me. She was staring at me with a cold and dead look in her eyes. I tried to speak, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed with fear. The woman started walking towards me, and I could feel her cold breath on my face. That's when I heard the voice again. The same voice that had whispered in my ear earlier. It said, "You should have never come here. You will never leave." And then everything went black. I woke up outside the mansion with my camera lying next to me. I looked at the footage and saw the last video that I had recorded. It was the scariest thing I had ever seen. The woman that I had seen in the mansion was standing right behind me, her cold eyes fixed on me. The video ended with the sound of her voice saying, "You are mine now. You will never leave." I never returned to the mansion again. I couldn't shake off the feeling that the woman was still watching me. I never uploaded that last video, as I knew it would be too scary for my viewers. That was the last time I ever visited a haunted location. I was camping with my friends in a remote part of the forest. We had been hiking all day and decided to set up camp near a small stream. As night fell, we built a fire and shared stories over dinner. Eventually, we retired to our tents, exhausted from the long day. I lay in my sleeping bag, listening to the sounds of the forest. The wind rustled through the leaves and the stream gurgled nearby. I began to doze off when I heard a strange whispering sound. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the whispers grew louder and more distinct. I sat up and listened, trying to make out the words. The whispering seemed to be coming from the woods around us, but I couldn't tell what was being said. My heart began to race as the whispers grew louder and more insistent. I woke up my friends, but they were too groggy to hear the whispers and told me to go back to sleep. I tried to ignore the whispering and lay back down in my sleeping bag. But as soon as I closed my eyes, the whispers grew even louder and I could make out a voice calling my name. I sat up again, my heart pounding in my chest. My friends were still asleep, and I realized I was alone with whatever was whispering in the woods. I stepped outside of my tent and looked around, but I couldn't see anything. The whispering continued, and I realized it was coming from deeper in the woods. I followed the sound, walking through the trees in the direction of the whispering. As I got deeper into the woods, the whispers grew louder and more frenzied. I started to feel like I was being followed, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I turned around, but I couldn't see anything in the darkness. Suddenly, the whispering stopped, and everything fell silent. I was alone in the woods, surrounded by darkness. I tried to call out to my friends, but my voice was hoarse and weak. I stumbled around in the darkness, trying to find my way back to camp. As I walked, I began to hear strange noises all around me. Leaves rustled, branches snapped, and something growled in the distance. I started to run, desperate to get back to the safety of my tent. But no matter how fast I ran, the forest seemed to stretch out in front of me, and I couldn't find my way back. The noises grew louder and more threatening, and I realized I was being hunted by something in the woods. Finally, I stumbled onto a clearing, and I saw the flicker of a campfire in the distance. I ran towards it, hoping that my friends were still there. But as I got closer, I realized that the campfire was surrounded by dark, hooded figures. They turned towards me, and I saw that their eyes glowed with an unearthly light. I tried to run, but I was surrounded on all sides. The hooded figures reached out for me, and I felt cold, bony fingers close around my arms. I screamed, but my voice was drowned out by the sound of their chanting. I woke up in my tent, my heart racing and my clothes soaked with sweat. I realized it had all been a nightmare, but the memory of the whispering in the woods stayed with me for days. I never went camping again, and I never forgot the terror of being lost and alone in the dark forest. When I was on the laptop, I never expected to come across something that would change my life forever. It was just a typical night, scrolling through social media and watching some videos before going to bed. But that all changed when I stumbled upon a strange website. The website looked like it was from the early 2000s, with a black background and white text. It had no header or footer, just a single page with a plain white box in the middle. The box had a prompt that read, "Enter your name." I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what I was about to do, but my curiosity got the better of me. I typed my name into the box and pressed enter. Immediately, the screen turned black and a message appeared in bold white letters, "Welcome, my name." The message was followed by a stream of code that I couldn't make sense of. Suddenly, the code disappeared, and the screen turned into a live feed of my room. I looked around, and everything seemed normal. My room was just as I left it, with my bed in the center, my dresser on one side, and my laptop on the other. But something was off. The laptop wasn't how I left it. The screen was black, but the camera light was on. I tried to close the laptop, but the screen stayed on and the camera kept recording. I tried to turn off the laptop, but it wouldn't power down. That's when I heard a sound, a faint whisper that sounded like it was coming from the laptop's speakers. I leaned in to listen, but I couldn't make out what it was saying. I turned up the volume and listened again, and this time I heard it more clearly. It was a voice, a sinister and malevolent voice that said, "I've been waiting for you, my name." I was paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. I tried to close the laptop again, but it wouldn't budge. The voice continued, saying, "I've been watching you, and now I have you right where I want you." I looked around the room, but there was no one there. I was alone with this evil presence, trapped in my own room. The voice continued to taunt me, telling me things that no one could know. Suddenly, the laptop screen went blank and the camera light turned off. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking it was finally over. But as I turned to leave the room, I saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was a tall, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, staring right at me. I screamed and ran out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. When I turned to look back, the door was still closed, but I could feel its presence on the other side, waiting for me. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for me to let my guard down. And every time I looked at my laptop, I couldn't help but wonder if the evil presence was still there, watching my every move.